How's it going, guys? And welcome back to the Adams Brothers podcast. We are here this evening with attorney Suzette Hyde. Suzette Hyde is running for county judge in the 17th Judicial Circuit Court, Group 15. And Ms. Hyde is also the owner of Hyde Law Office. And she has offices in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Boynton Beach, Florida, and Naples, Florida as well. Attorney Suzette Hyde, welcome to the Adams Brothers podcast.
Welcome. Thank you, brothers. Thank you for having me. Look, I'm here in sunny South Florida, as you can see, where it's always sunshine. And so it's a good day to be on talking with you. Thank you for having me.
Well, we can certainly see that sun coming through, shining right down on you right there. So it's a beautiful day here in sunny South Florida, like you said. So let's get on into it. So just go ahead and tell the viewers a little bit about you, where you grew up, where you went to high school, where you went to college and got your college degree, your law degree, and just tell us a little bit about you.
Well, it's my pleasure to tell the voters and you a little bit about me, but I have to confess that I'm not used to this. I'm normally a very private person, but I understand that running this race, running for county court judge, people need to know who's on a bench. And so not just your qualifications, not just where you went to school or how long you've been practicing or how long you've been an attorney, but what really motivates you from childhood. So I'm going to go back a little bit and talk about my background and what I've done in my volunteer work as well as my legal work. So I was born in Jamaica. I was actually born to a teen mom. And my mom also was, she was a good student, but back in the 70s in Jamaica, you cannot continue to attend school and be pregnant. It's a little bit different than how it is now. So she had me, and then my great granduncle took me in, of all people. So I was raised by my great granduncle. I called him and his wife, Mama and Papa, that my grandfather raised me. And I lived with a few people, ended up living with my mom. And I came to this country in the 80s, 1981. I lived in New York. And then I went to this high school called Phillips Exeter Academy. I was in Brooklyn with a lot of movers and shakers in Brooklyn. And we took this test called this SSAT test. I don't know if you're aware of that test. Yes. Yeah. And a great program called A Better Chance actually found me. And I remember I was applying to schools that had this British name, coming from Jamaica, where it was a former English colony. I was applying to schools I knew nothing about. And then this school called Phillips Exeter Academy sent me an acceptance letter. And I had no idea what it meant. For those of you who don't know what that school is, that's the school that Mark Zuckerberg went to. And then he went on to Harvard, spent a year there, realized that he had enough schooling and started Facebook. And a lot of dignitaries, a lot of presidents, they send their children to that school. And so when I got the letter, my uncle, who was in Harvard at the time, because Exeter is a feeder school to Harvard, said to me, you can't pass up this opportunity, you have to go. And so I was, as any teenager, I was just so glad to be away from home. But it also meant that I was in Exeter, New Hampshire, where the population, maybe it was 2% Black people or something like that. And so I was at a school which provided me with an excellent education, but we represented a very small number. And so that meant that I experienced things that I hadn't experienced before in my life, having been, born in Jamaica, where it's a Black country, and then living in New York, where it's a little more diverse. You have some Caribbean people, but where I was there, we faced definitely discrimination. And a lot of people believe that, we were there for affirmative action, and so they didn't respect us. But I think we held our own rights because we had the grades and we contributed to the school, but it meant we fought a lot of racial battles as well too. I was fortunate enough to have the school give a racial survey, which actually then changed the school, because the school before didn't have any programs, any classes about cultural awareness. So people took the survey and they responded with all their stereotypical answers. Some of them took it seriously, some of them didn't. but the school realized that the things we were complaining about, they were true. And so I graduated the following year, but then that was the start of some classes that they had there. So I'm really, proud of having done that. I got my degree from the University of Virginia in economics, and then I went on to law school at NYU. And when I left law school, I was actually, I had a terminally ill child, and I was prepared to just spend my rest of my life taking care of this child. But my child died after being about 9 months. And I can't say.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it really changed my life. It really did. And just a little bit about that, just to digress, as a Black woman, and even though I had all these degrees, they were still insisting that my child must have had AIDS or HIV, when in fact, my child had cystic fibrosis. So now, if you know anything about cystic fibrosis, it's mandatory testing for cystic fibrosis now. But back in 1998, when I had him, it wasn't mandatory testing. So they kept testing us for AIDS and HIV and saying, that's what he must have had, but he didn't. And so, yeah, he passed away, and I looked at my life and I said, you know what, I need to do something with my legal career. But I knew that I did not want to work for a big firm. I knew that I wanted to be in court, and I knew that I wanted to use what I learned to help like your everyday ordinary people. So I worked at some firms in New York, and in 2007, my family, I was living in New Jersey, working in New York, going to court every day, and my family moved to Atlanta. And I said to myself, well, where do you want to go? And it wasn't Atlanta for me. I did all this research about, diversity and days of sunshine and all that. And Broward County was and still is the most diverse county in Florida. So I chose Broward County to bring my son. I was a divorced single parent at that time. So we've been here ever since then. I worked for an insurance company, and I started my law firm in 2010, where I've been helping families. I run a family law practice, and I also do estate planning, and I do some probate as well. Right. That was a long answer, but I wanted to tell you, as I said, about my background, and not just my legal background, but who I am and what motivates me as well.
Well, that's what the people who are ultimately going to vote for you, that's what they want to hear, because we all know that when you get the ballot in the mail, and when you're in that booth getting ready to make that, make your choice of who you want to vote for, it only just says on there, should we retain this judge?
Right.
Yes or no. It doesn't tell you anything about your background, or, or what you've been through, or, your law history or anything. It just says, should you vote for this person? And you basically, the voters have to do that research themselves. And if they don't do it, then you could end up voting for somebody that's going to mean you no good in the end down the road there,
And people want to hear about real life stories like what you just told.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're right. And what people do, if they don't pick a name, they just skip the question. They just skip the names. So right now, I think more than ever, it's important that we pick our local judges. And I know you're going to get into that, but particularly with Roe versus Wade and what they're saying, sending the power back to our local government. We need to know who's on our benches. So that's why I said, normally I'm a private person, but I'm going to be 51 this year, and I've been through some things, and it's time for me to step up and really serve the community more in a way that we need it.
Right. If you wouldn't have said that just now, I would have probably thought you was about 43.
Maybe 40.
That's so sweet. Oh, I'll take it. You look
so young.
I'll take it.
You don't even look like you're that age. I'm not even going to mention the age, but you don't look like you're that age. You look like you're about 40 years old.
Thanks. My grandma always looked really young. I can say that,
What's the secret to the fountain of youth?
Lots of oil. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get on into the first question. If elected, how would you help minimize implicit bias within the judicial system?
Yeah, implicit bias. I like that question, and I just want to define implicit bias for your viewers. And I define implicit bias as just a tendency to either classify something as right or wrong or good or bad based on what you're familiar with. So what people tend to do is, let's say that you're used to eating bananas for breakfast every morning. If somebody offers you oranges, you're like, nah, that's not good because bananas are better. So in the same way, when a judge comes on a bench and a judge is used to seeing people in a particular situation, apologize, I should turn off my phone off. I don't have this, but when they're used to seeing people in a particular situation, let's say they're just used to seeing like Black people on television committing crimes, or they're not in a neighborhood where they've lived amongst Black people. And same for Black people too. If you've never associated yourself with white people or worked amongst them or live amongst them, maybe you see them as the enemy as well too. So it's important that we have people who have a diverse background, who are cognizant of the fact that a person is a person is a person. Yes, things have happened, and we have certain things in common because we share a common experience. But when somebody comes in front of you, you need to look at that individual and the facts that they present. And so you kind of have to pull yourself back from jumping to quick judgments, and also continue to expand your knowledge, continue to expose yourself to new things, continue to expose yourself to new situations and new environments. I didn't talk about the fact that I've studied in Japan as well too. I've visited a lot of different countries and different places, and I've lived in different states throughout the United States. So I bring with me the experience of having lived amongst different cultures. And then also, I've been on the bench. I talk about that. I've been on the bench for 10 years as a traffic hearing officer. It's a part-time quasi-judicial position. It just means that I'm not called a judge, but I do the same thing a judge does. I'm on the bench. I hear cases. I weigh facts. I make rulings. I maintain court order. I maintain a docket. And I've been doing that for 10 years. And so I took a break last year. And when I came back, people were saying, you need to run for judge. What are you waiting for? You need to do it. And I think it's because I really just slow everything down. I mean, we have a big docket. Sometimes it's like 200 cases, but you have to slow everything down, particularly for the person who that's their first time coming to court. So you can't, people come to traffic court, speeding ticket, whatever it is. You can't assume that they know what to do or they even understand it. So you have to slow it down so the person leaves and says, okay, I understand why I was here, and I understand how I'm going to move forward now and what's happened. And I think a lot of that doesn't happen. We come into court, people speak like in these acronyms, and they speak with these things where people are familiar, and the lawyers might be familiar, the clerks are familiar, but the person who's standing there is saying, what just happened? So I know that from representing clients and being on the bench. So.
Well, you certainly have, you have some experience already. You're not an elected judge, but like you said, you've already been doing the work. So may as well go ahead and put you on in there and let you do it, do the work that you've been doing. So that's a good start.
It is.
Yeah.
I agree. And that's really the motivation.
Right.
10 years I've been on there. And so now I want to do more. I want to have a greater impact because I think people like my approach. So I could be comfortable and run my practice and continue to do that. But with all that's going on, now is not the time to be comfortable. I think Chris Rock had a concert a few years ago and he had "Comfort is Poison." He didn't say anything about it, but he had in the back, "Comfort is poison." And I'm like, yeah, it's true. Comfort is poison.
It is.
Get out of our comfort zone.
Right. How would you address the issues of Black and brown defendants receiving harsher and longer sentences than white defendants who have committed the same crime?
That's a big problem. And I'm going to tell you another story. When I was in law school, I was really excited to have criminal law. And you take criminal law your first year. And my professor, I used to get called on a lot. Every class I went to, I was the first person to get called on. And I was saying, is this a conspiracy? What's going on? And then I realized my last name is Hyde, Hyde. It's an easy name to pronounce. It's easy to spell. It wasn't like these other long names that end in ski or whatever it is, So I got called on all the time. And the law professor asked me, why do you think white collar crimes are punished less severely than violent crimes? And I'm the first lawyer in my family. I hadn't worked in a law office. I hadn't been in court. And I answered what I thought based on my experience. I said, well, I think it's about people looking down on other people and judging harshly. And I think I was 21 when I entered law school. And he said, no, wrong answer. And of course, in front of 200 people, you're embarrassed, that you have the wrong answer. And then I was shocked to hear the right answer was that the people who are making the decisions are more likely to be lenient to people who commit crimes that they think they themselves would commit. So they're saying that, people in professional categories are more likely to commit white collar crimes. So therefore they punish those less severely, because they think if they were in that position, it's so easy for them to quite possibly commit that crime. And I thought that that's basically the same thing as I was saying, that people are looking down on other people and judging them harshly because they're saying, I could never be in that position. And as a judge, you're not really supposed to do that. And you're not supposed to put yourself to say, well, I think I might commit that crime. So, okay, well, this person deserves. And so that implicit bias comes in.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of Black and brown people get caught up. We ended up getting longer sentences in jail, more time, with as far as probation goes and community service. Harsher, we get sentenced harsher, and it's just a fact, and people can come on and they could try and debate it. Oh, no, that's not true. It is true.
It is true. It's definitely true. And we have it too. I remember having a conversation with my son about it a few years ago. And I said, what if you heard that somebody came in the neighborhood and stole something? What color you think that person is? And, we do it. We think, oh, well, that person must be Black, because we're socialized to that, not just how we grew up, but also media and all of that too. We do it to ourselves as well. So it's not just other people. So we have to be careful of that. Just putting a person of color on the bench doesn't mean that person recognizes their biases and recognizes that, they're people like us are being discriminated against. So
absolutely.
And I've experienced it on the bench. 10 years ago, there were not that many Black judges. In the past 10 years, I'm trying to think, at least 3 female Black judges are on that were not on 10 years ago. So when I came on as a traffic hearing officer, and I was the only African-American at the time, and I went through some stuff because, they were saying, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing. And they switched me out with another one, all of that. But people would come in the courtroom and they will be shocked. They would say, oh, who's this on the bench? Oh, so this is who they're putting on the bench now. They would make like frivolous complaints and all of that. So I get it too.
How many Black judges do you know off the top of your head? How many Black judges do we have in Broward County?
I understand it's still about 16%, between 10 to 16%. I know that in county court, there are at least 4 I can think of right now. And there are 90 judges total. And I think there might be another 5 in circuit. I need to know for certain. So
I think it's around 9 too. Yeah, that's what I researched, and it came up around 9 judges out of 90. I mean,
yes.
Definitely need more black judges on that bench down there.
We need people stepping up. You know what I'm saying? Running this campaign thing, putting yourself through the ringer for judicial nominations, it's a lot of work, and also handling your own practice and just being able to put yourself up to that scrutiny. As I said, I've been on a bench for 10 years, and I can tell you, you are opening yourself up to all sorts of attacks that you think you're doing a good job, and then people turn around and say, well, I didn't like that ruling, and so you have to have a thick skin, really.
Yes, you do.
And be focused on what you're trying to accomplish, and also be independent, particularly for Broward County. I just want underscore that Broward County has been in the news unfavorably, particularly our judiciary. But also everybody knows Broward County, everybody's either married to each other or related or something. And so with so many people now being attracted to Broward and moving to Broward, particularly during COVID, we have to have our bench be more diverse and to stop this collusive kind of thing going on.
Yeah. Yes. Attorney Hyde, have you ever ran for public office before?
I have not at all. I say I'm not political, but people are saying, yeah, you are. Now that I'm running this race, they're saying you are, but I have not. No, not at all.
Okay. And how would you balance being an independent judge from an elected official?
Yeah, I believe the race I'm running it not through favors, not through connections, not through who I'm calling in to help me out. And I'm not saying anything about my opponents, but I think they're running a different race because they are different. But I am running on my credentials. I'm running on my experience, and I believe in the Broward voters that they are going to pick me because of that. Because if they really do want change, you're not going to just pick the friend or the person whose name you've heard before, or because the person is married to somebody else. You're going to pick the best person for the position. And by far, I am more experienced than they are.
Yes, and to follow up with what you're saying now, how would you explain your judicial philosophy?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, judicial philosophy, because, we talk about this justice for all thing, and we say the Pledge of Allegiance and we say it so frivolously, liberty and justice for all. And what does that really mean? I think it means that all of us have the obligation to pursue justice. When we say that Pledge of Allegiance, it's not just about the courts. But when you get to the courts and then there is no justice in the court, I think that's when people are really crying out. Right. My judicial philosophy is that laws are made to protect the community. First you have to make sure that the community is safe, because that's why we have laws. Otherwise, people would do whatever they wanted to do, and it's a free-for-all. However, I believe, and I'm a Christian, I'm not afraid to say that, I believe that law and grace can work together. I understand the concept of grace because none of us are perfect people. So you need to look at, I was actually just having a conversation with my staff, and I was saying that we need to look at, even when people have committed wrongs, we need to look at how we can get them to contribute to society positively, because no one person is all good or all bad, in my experience.
Mm-hmm. And I look at the current judicial system now. I mean, even with the current climate of politics in our country. But if you look at the Supreme Court, they say justice is supposed to be blind.
Yeah.
But the president makes the appointment. And if you look at the Supreme Court now, I don't see how anyone can really say they're gonna be fair when, from what I'm seeing, as a longtime follower of politics and politicians, I see politics coming into play in our justice system, and that's not a good mesh. And I just see this even in the state of Florida with the appointments that are being made by the governor. They're all political appointments. It's either you're on the left or you're on the right. It's no more in the middle now. So I have never been more apprehensive about our justice system ever. I've seen injustices from the past, but I'm just like wondering now, is there any real justice out in our system right now?
That's a really, really important point, because our judiciary is as good as the people who step up to serve. We cannot talk about Lady Justice being blind, and then we have people who are either far on the right or far on the left, and then they're not actually carrying out what they've taken an oath to carry out. But your observation is right. Nominations are so powerful. people are nominating people who they align with politically and who have strong political views, which is why this election is so important. Not every judge gets elected. We have 6 judicial races coming up in August. And so everybody needs to pay attention to what you're doing here and register to vote and vote in August, not wait until November. I'm out there and I'm talking to people and people are like, I don't know if I'm going to vote in August. Maybe I'll wait until November. You can't do that. And the reason being is that you wait, you may not have a choice in November. You have a choice now. If any one of us gets more than 50% of the votes, they go on the November ballot unopposed. If somebody doesn't get enough votes, there are 3 of us in this race. If somebody doesn't get enough votes, that person is not going forward on the November ballot. So people, people died so that we could vote. They kept the vote from us for a long time for a reason. So when people say, oh, I'm not voting because it doesn't matter. Well, if it didn't matter, they wouldn't have kept you from voting. It matters. So your observation is right. And we just, we can't just be reactive anymore. A lot of what we're doing is being reactive. Marching and protesting, that's great. You need to, because sometimes you need that awareness. But now that we're aware and we're woke, then let's be ahead. Let's be on the offense.
And one other question. Have you taken any money from police unions?
They have not offered me and I haven't taken any. So, yeah.
I always ask that question. I'm a social justice warrior. And I mean, not saying that because you take money from someone, you can be compromised, but I have seen a lot of cases like district attorneys, and they take money. Matter of fact, one of the cases I was just following is Fani Willis in Atlanta. She came in and she had a lot of support from the police unions. And the first thing she did, she came in talking about justice, but when she hit that office, the first thing she did was all those charges that former DA Paul Howard laid on those cops during the social unrest of 2020. The first thing she did, and she's a Black woman, the first thing she did was got in office and she dropped all those charges. So it's interesting. I like to know, I always tell people to follow the money sometimes, and it can lead you.
Yes, and it's public knowledge. It's on Broward Supervisor of Elections. You can look, and I have purpose, there are a set of attorneys that appear regularly in county court and all that. And it's been my goal that I haven't even reached out and asked them. I can't ask anybody personally for money, but my committee, I haven't even asked them to reach out and ask those people, because look, when you become a judge, you can't even accept gifts. You can't even accept gifts. So now you're running for judge. You're saying to these people, well, yeah, donate to my campaign, but I don't really owe you anything. First of all, we're humans. We're humans. Somebody does something for you, unless you don't feel anything, you're gonna feel some type of obligation or, some type of leaning towards that. And I don't know, I can't say, this is not a comment on my opponents and what they're doing, because I don't know. And I don't know them personally, but I think that can make it very difficult. I was talking to my staff and my son and explaining it. And I was saying, there are limits on what we can accept as a judge. And that's really good, because the contribution limit's only $1,000 per corporation or per individual. So imagine if there were no limits. Let's say you could give $10,000 or $100,000. Somebody's funding your campaign in that way and you win. As a human being, you're gonna feel something. You're gonna feel as if you might owe an obligation. So I think that is important. I don't know in Georgia if they have limits on judicial campaign contributions, but in Florida, it's $1,000. So, yeah.
And I see a lot of times, a lot of candidates, they're skirting that law by having these super PACs and super PACs. That's how they're skirting around the contribution law a lot.
As they say, more than one way to skin a cat. Yeah.
And also, I got this one final question for you, and this might just go as far as your final comments as far as what you want to tell us about yourself. Attorney Hyde, what qualifies you to be a judge beyond your law degree? I'd like for you to tell the viewers that's watching this right now.
Sure, absolutely. I think this job, people, they start with the first question and they say, why do you want to become a judge? And they say, I'm going to give you an easy question. Why do you want to become a judge? Every time somebody asks me that question, I think it's a hard question because I realize that it comes with a lot of responsibility, particularly here in Broward County, because we're working from a system where people already doubt the system. There's no confidence in the system. So I'm coming in and people are looking to me to fix something that somebody already did, right? So that alone is a heavy burden. But not just that, Broward County, the judges, we carry a lot of, the judges do. I used to be a hearing officer and I can't call myself a judge, but we carry a lot of cases, more so than other jurisdictions. So the workload is already very heavy. So when people say, why do you want to become a judge? Oh, I just want to help people. It comes with a lot of responsibility. But what makes me qualified beyond my experience is that you need to look at whether somebody has a demonstrated commitment to the community and who has a strong work ethic and who's ethical. People don't talk about ethics, but ethics are important. You have to have your foundation. I was fortunate enough to be raised by my great-grand uncle. And as I said, I don't know if I said it, but he was very sick and I would read the Bible to him. So from when I'm talking 5 years old, I remember just, staying beside his bed and reading him Psalms, reading him Proverbs. So I have that foundation. When I graduated from a law school, my grandmother, who she was a teacher when she left Jamaica, and she came to this country and became a domestic worker, but then she did other jobs as well. But she sacrificed and she humbled herself. She gave me a Bible and it said, "For what shall it profit a man or a woman if she shall gain the world and lose her soul?" And so, I've had people, and I still have people in my life who are reminding me of what's important. You need to see the person. Okay, so you can't just be focused on what can I get out of this, but what am I doing and how does it affect other people and who am I becoming? There are a lot of things I didn't say. People can go to my website. I worked on Wall Street. I had a degree in economics and I worked on Wall Street for many summers at some big name firms. After working there for about 3 summers, I knew that was not for me because I saw what these people have become, addicted to drugs, cutthroat to each other, only concerned about the money. So you have to know that the person who's becoming judge has that moral compass, is concerned about the community. As I said, and I haven't said it, I've been saying in other interviews, I'll say it here. I worked with the Florida Guardian ad litem for 10 years, volunteering as a volunteer guardian ad litem. I worked with the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. I have been a chair of Deerfield Beach High School School Advisory Council. I've served on a Broward District Advisory Council. I've worked with Fort Lauderdale High School during their pre-law program. I have helped with their mock trials. I hire their high school students. I have some with me here with me now. And I just have this, it's really just me. I just have this philosophy that this knowledge that I have is to be shared. There are people who are in prisons who know more law than attorneys that are coming out of law school. This is, the law doesn't need to be a secret. It needs to be accessible to people. So, yeah. And my strong work ethic, I think from all the things I've done, I think you can assume that I have a strong work ethic, and which I do. So, yeah.
Thank you for your work at Deerfield High.
Yeah. We live in Deerfield, so that's very close. We both graduated from Deerfield Beach High School.
Really? Yes. I was also on the, my son was in the band. He played the trombone. So I was also on the board of the band. And, when you're dealing with the band, you know how hard it is to get people to come to practice, come to games. So I was doing things like picking people up, dropping them off, and not just on the board, but on the board too, because you want to make sure that the money they're allocating is being spent properly. So, I was glad to serve there.
Right. Well, we know you are a very busy attorney.
A little
And
bit.
before we let you go, we want you to look into the camera and tell the people of Broward County why they should vote for you rather than your opponents.
Thank you. So voters and concerned residents, the Adam brothers are spending their time to give you information. There's nothing that they're getting out of this. They understand that we need to be informed and we need to take action. I am asking you on August 23rd, or you can vote early from August 13th to the 21st, or request your mail-in ballots at home and participate in the process. Let's not sit back and be cynical about what's going on, because I think people are counting on us doing nothing or talking and then not taking action. Right. We need people who are going to stand up for justice, and we need people who are going to support us. I cannot be your next Broward County judge without your support. And so I'm asking for your support to be the next Broward County judge.
Well said. Well said.
Thank
So
you.
We have been talking to attorney Suzette Hyde. She's running for county judge in the 17th Judicial Circuit Court in Broward County, Florida, group number 15. So she's asking for your vote on August the 23rd, or whenever you go and vote early. So thank you so much for coming.
November.
Don't wait until November. You're right.
Wait until November. Let's not count anybody out. I'm counting on you. So
absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Attorney Hyde, thank you so much for coming by the Adams Brothers podcast. And when you win, don't forget about us. Now we always tell our guests that we want them to come back on the podcast, and not many of them, with the exception of one, has come back to talk to us. And we want to try and hold them to their promise. So we want you to come back and talk to us when you win, or when you getting sworn in, and when you take that oath and you're putting on that black robe. Don't forget to invite us to your ceremony there. We'll be right there.
Hold me to it. Hold me to
we'll
it.
Hold you to it.
Yeah, I think, General, I'm a committed. It's one of the things that's my pet peeve. Somebody says something and they don't do it. That's one of my pet peeves. And now I'm working on that. People asking, what's your strengths and weaknesses? Like, don't tell me you're going to do something and then you don't follow through. Right. Definitely. I appreciate what you're offering, and thank you. Right. I will be back.
Well, thank you very much for coming by and stopping by and talking to the Adams Brothers podcast. Attorney Suzette Hyde, thank you so much for stopping by. And congratulations. Well, congratulations to you early. And thank you so much for stopping by the Adams Brothers podcast. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening.